2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Well, I'm sure you're wondering why I'm doing this. Well, the engine's got to come back out temporarily. Because when I try to fit the Firebird headers that I bought at the swap meet, it wasn't going to happen at all. So I started thinking, the A-body headers fit decently well, except for the lower control arm. And several people mentioned this, and I'm going to have to do this because I went and measured the daily driver up front and measured this one where the engine sets accordingly to the firewall. Now obviously, if you look at a Chevy and a Pontiac, Chevrolet, the passenger side cylinder head sitting back a little bit, driver side sitting flush, and this is the other way around. Well, the firewall is set up that way. So it's set up where you got a little more room on the passenger side, less room on the driver's side because you got this bigger lip on the firewall over here that's, well, in the way for me moving the engine back, which is what I'm going to be doing. So I measured the distance from the back side of the distributor to the firewall on this one, of course the other one, and realized I could go back 1 inch to 1.5 inches, which should more than likely clear my headers. Now as far as lower control arms, that should clear most of it. I think because I'm doing drop spindles and I need new bushings, I'm thinking about ordering lower control arms, tubular control arms, which should give me more clearance. And that should be good enough for a daily driver, I would think. But I can't really go back any here because I'm going to hit this brace. I'm going to have to unfortunately cut that brace no matter what. Well, the lip of this brace, to me that's not a big deal. I'm not worried about that. But let me show you back here behind the engine. So you can see right here how close we are to that. I'm going to trim that off so I can clear the valve cover. You can see how big that lip is sticking there compared to this side. Big difference. But yeah, that's there's a lot of room for the engine to go back, and it does need to go back. I'll be tight there. I don't want to cut the firewall, but it's not going to block any of the transmission bell housing bolts, which is good. Don't have to worry about that. Well, the engine's back out. I'm going to look at everything, see how I want to go about this, make sure this is the correct thing to do instead of doing something else, like, I don't know, welding supports or moving something, I don't know. I'm going to take a look at everything while that's out now, and while that's out, got to take a break, feed my pets, and then come back to this. got some huge setbacks here. It's pretty bad. I noticed the rust bubble, so I started grinding it down, try to get the rust, get rid of the rust, try to weld a pinhole. They put so much Bondo on all this, it's ridiculous. So it's hard to weld, and then I started digging and digging and digging to try to get rid of the rust where I can find some good metal. And literally, I have nothing there now. I know some of the northern guys are, that's not bad, but man, I was not supposed to have to do any more rust repairs on this. And it's even through the cowl here, where the seam was, so now I gotta figure out how to go about fixing this, because I don't think my welder's capable of doing it. I don't know what to do now. It's awful. I'm going to definitely have to take a break. Well, I had to take a break because it's pretty disheartening. Got my wits gathered back, and I cut a big old chunk out. Now, and I know this ain't perfect, but honestly I thought about it. I don't care that it's not perfect. I'm not building it to resell. I'm not building it as a show truck. I'm building it for me to drive and enjoy. And I thought about it, I'm like, man, some of these drag cars, when they do this stuff, obviously it's going to be a street truck, they really just, some of the stuff is just, you know, riveted together or seam sealed, whatever. It's not beautifully perfect. Man, I had to stop and think about it. Do the best with what you have when you have. So, going back to the old days of hot rodding, a lot of that stuff wasn't perfect, but it didn't matter. They drove it and enjoyed it. That's where I'm getting at. I got all the rust out except for one hole in the cowl that's behind here. The inside, I'll patch it that way. I stripped out the stream sealer inside there and cleaned it out until I couldn't find any more rust. So what I'm going to do, this is actually tacked in as a backer plate. I'm going to have another one formed, fitted right there and tacked in, and try to flush it along the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get all this tacked together and done. I smoothed and sanded it until I found no more rust. So that right there is obviously a big rust issue. The other truck's the same way. I should have known, but wahahaha. Anyway. Yeah, I realize it's completely dark and it's hard to see, but it's because it's taking so long to do this. I've welded the patch panels inside all there, and I kept going, kept pulling seam sealer until it was basically so one, I either couldn't reach it, or two, it just quit pulling up rust and it's clean underneath, which this section right here is horrible. But I put the backer, tack the backer to the back side because you're not going to see that, and put the panel right there, did all that. That's not going to be perfect and pretty, but I'm going to live with it because well, this looks nice, smooth and pretty, but if you look over here at all this factory stuff where it's gobbly, messy, and you get a seam and all that from the factory, I'm okay with the firewall being a little, having some seams and some rough spots. Not a big deal. And I did go ahead and seam seal everything. What I did was went ahead, welded everything, cut as much as everything I could get out that I could reach, welded everything I could weld, made sure I couldn't find any holes. Then I used a rust dissolver. That's why it's got so dark and went through so many steps. Then used a reformer and sealer. Then used the body seam and went back over and filled in all that I could get where I got it all off in the cowl, all seamed back, and went inside where I put the backers and seamed around them. Then proceeded to undercoat after it was all dry, undercoat inside there and inside the firewall, inside the cab, all that's undercoated and done. Did a lot. So hopefully shouldn't rust anymore. If it does, it should take quite a while to rust. I'm not sure why it was so rusty in those seams. It must have had one bad spot in it, because some of that seam filler was so hard to get out, and it looked like it seemed filled pretty well. But of course those cows are notorious for holding leaves and debris. Ever since I started taking this thing apart, I've actually cut down at the cab so it falls easier and opened up in there where all debris can fall out easier. So now that this unfortunate thing is taken care of, maybe tomorrow or the next day I work on it, I can get the engine set back, think about how to do that, and continue on with this project. And this was a dampener for sure, but at least it's fixed now. As long as it doesn't leak, I'll be happy. Now inside there, it's not so pretty inside the cowl, but you'll never see it. Under the firewall, I took care of it. It's not the prettiest, but you'll never see it. Right there, it's not the prettiest. In fact, I see some grind marks still. I'm not really worried about it, because once everything gets set up in here, no one's really going to notice it with the engine in there. So, well, it's been a day. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, thanks for watching.